Black single dad saves injured millionaire, CEO by the road, and sparks an unexpected love. It was a stormy evening, and the rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the roof of Marcus Williams' old pickup truck as he navigated the slippery roads, exhausted from a grueling 12-hour shift at the construction site. His young daughter, Lily, sat quietly in the back seat, her small body curled under a worn blanket, asleep with soft, even breaths that filled Marcus with both tenderness and a fierce protective instinct. He had just been thinking about dinner, bills, and whether he would have enough energy to help Lily with her homework tomorrow, when out of the corner of his eye, a flicker of headlights caught his attention. A car had skidded off the road, now lying on its side in a ditch, smoke curling ominously from the crumpled hood. Without a second thought, Marcus pulled over, heart pounding, and grabbed his first aid kit, tossing it onto the wet asphalt as he sprinted toward the wreckage. The rain soaked him instantly, but there was no time to think about himself. His focus was entirely on the figure slumped inside the mangled car. He could see the man's face, streaked with blood and grime, barely conscious, every shallow breath, seeming to strain against the pain. Marcus's hands moved with urgent precision as he assessed the injuries, murmuring reassurances even as adrenaline pushed him forward. He knew he had to get the man out carefully. A wrong move could make everything worse. With a deep breath, he lifted the injured man, feeling the awkward weight and the ragged breathing against his chest, and carried him to the truck. Each step was a careful balance between urgency and caution as the storm raged around him, lightning illuminating the chaotic scene with eerie flashes. Once inside the cab, Marcus wrapped a jacket around the man, leaned close, and spoke in steady, calm tones. "You're going to be okay. Just hold on. I've got you." He kept his eyes on the road, navigating through flooded patches and slick curves, driving faster than usual but safely, adrenaline sharpening every sense. Inside the truck, the man murmured faint words, groaning in discomfort, but Marcus could tell he was alive, and that was all that mattered. It wasn't until later, when the hospital staff rushed to take over, that Marcus learned the identity of the man he had saved. Jonathan Keller, a billionaire CEO whose face had appeared countless times on television and in newspapers, was the man he had pulled from the wreckage. Marcus didn't feel awe or intimidation. He simply felt relief that the man would live. Little did he know, this chance encounter would mark the beginning of a life-altering story, one that would intertwine bravery, gratitude, and the unexpected bonds that can arise from a single act of compassion, proving that courage and kindness often reveal themselves in moments of pure instinct and humanity. Marcus rushed through the sliding glass doors of the hospital, still dripping from the rain, holding Jonathan Keller carefully in his arms as nurses and doctors immediately sprang into action, their voices a mixture of urgency and controlled chaos. He explained quickly but clearly what had happened, recounting every detail of the accident, how he had found Jonathan trapped in the overturned car, bleeding and barely conscious, and how he had managed to get him to the hospital safely. The medical staff listened attentively, impressed not only by his bravery but by the calm, composed way he had handled the crisis, noting the precision in his movements and the steady tone of his voice even under immense pressure. Marcus stayed by Jonathan's side the entire time, holding his hand and brushing damp hair from his forehead, murmuring soft reassurances that seemed to reach through the fog of pain and confusion surrounding the injured billionaire. Jonathan's eyes fluttered open, heavy with grogginess, and for the first time he focused on the man who had saved him, taking in the sweat-drenched clothes, the tired but determined expression, and the unwavering concern reflected in Marcus's dark eyes. "You saved my life," Jonathan whispered, his voice raw, hoarse, and filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief, as though he could not quite comprehend that a stranger, a man with no reason to risk himself, had acted so selflessly. Marcus shook his head, a modest shrug accompanied by a quiet, "Anyone would have done the same," though inside he felt a swell of pride and humility he had never experienced before, a strange blend of courage recognized and humility preserved. Nurses moved efficiently around them, monitoring vitals and preparing Jonathan for further treatment. But Marcus remained a steadfast presence, refusing to leave his side, making sure Jonathan was never alone in those first crucial moments. As the night deepened, Marcus finally left the hospital to return home to Lily, his mind busy but calm, focusing on the simple domestic rhythms of life, thinking little of the significance of his actions, while Jonathan lay in the hospital bed, his mind racing and refusing to let go of the image of Marcus's resolute figure, his unflinching courage and his tender attention. He realized, in a way that money could never teach, that true strength lay in selflessness, in the courage to act without expectation of reward, and in the simple, profound kindness of a human being willing to risk everything for another. That night, Jonathan could not sleep, thinking about Marcus's quiet heroism, about the ordinary man who had done an extraordinary thing, and about how a single act of compassion had not only saved his life, but had begun to reshape his understanding of what it meant to live fully, honestly, and with a heart capable of gratitude, admiration, and eventually, a connection that neither time nor circumstance could diminish. A few days after the accident, Jonathan Keller insisted on visiting Marcus Williams at his modest home, determined to personally thank the man who had risked his life without hesitation for a complete stranger. Marcus, who had spent his life focused on providing for his young daughter Lily and keeping their small world steady, felt a wave of apprehension as he opened the door to find a sharply dressed man standing there, polite but commanding attention, with an aura of wealth and authority. At first, Marcus wasn't sure how to react, unsure how to behave around someone so out of his ordinary world, someone whose face had appeared on every television screen, someone whose decisions affected thousands of employees and millions of dollars. But Jonathan's warmth and humility immediately began to dissolve Marcus's nervousness. The billionaire spoke sincerely, not with airs of entitlement, but with heartfelt gratitude, explaining that he had thought about the courage and selflessness Marcus had shown and felt compelled to meet the man who had given him a second chance at life. Slowly, conversation flowed, first cautious, then easier, as stories and experiences were exchanged. Marcus shared tales of his struggles as a single father, the long hours at construction sites, the sacrifices he made to ensure Lily had a safe and loving home, the little victories, and the quiet moments of pride he felt when she smiled or learned something new. Jonathan spoke of the pressures of running a vast business empire, the philanthropic projects he pursued to help underprivileged communities, and the personal losses and challenges that had shaped him despite the wealth surrounding him. The more they talked, the more they realized the extraordinary qualities in each other. Marcus's resilience, integrity, and unwavering devotion to his daughter inspired Jonathan, while Marcus was struck by Jonathan's humility, his genuine kindness, and the way he could speak of immense responsibilities without losing sight of the human element, the importance of connection, and the value of every individual life. Hours passed unnoticed as they laughed, exchanged advice, and shared dreams, the distance between their worlds shrinking with every sentence, every shared smile, every honest revelation. What had begun as a life-saving encounter now blossomed into a profound, unexpected connection, a meeting of minds and hearts that neither could have anticipated but both welcomed fully. By the time Jonathan left that evening, Marcus felt a quiet awe and curiosity about the man he had helped, while Jonathan felt an unshakable admiration and a desire to see more of the courage, warmth, and authenticity Marcus brought into the world. It was clear to both that this connection was not fleeting. It had the potential to change both of their lives, laying the foundation for trust, respect, and perhaps something even deeper, born from the purest human instincts of compassion and bravery. Weeks passed, and then months, and what had begun as a single, life-saving encounter gradually grew into something neither Marcus Williams nor Jonathan Keller had anticipated. yet both embraced with open hearts. Jonathan made it clear early on that he wanted to be a part of Marcus and Lily's life, not as a patron or charity case, but as a genuine friend, someone who could share in the small joys and everyday routines that defined their world. Marcus, initially wary of how a billionaire could fit into their simple life, soon found himself drawn to Jonathan's sincerity, the subtle warmth in his voice, the effortless charm, and the way he could make Lily giggle uncontrollably with just a playful word or gesture. Slowly, their bond deepened, not through grand gestures or lavish gifts, but through shared laughter, quiet conversations, and the mutual understanding of what it meant to care for someone selflessly. Jonathan began to join them in small routines, helping Marcus with Lily's homework, cooking simple meals together, and celebrating little milestones that often went unnoticed by the larger world. In turn, Marcus saw in Jonathan a man who, despite enormous wealth and influence, valued human connection above all else, a man who could be gentle, patient, and supportive in ways that left Marcus both inspired and touched. Over time, love quietly but undeniably took root. Marcus realized he was falling not for the wealth or status Jonathan possessed, but for his kindness, his unwavering integrity, and the genuine affection he showed toward Lily and himself. Jonathan, too, found himself captivated by Marcus's strength, resilience, and the depth of his compassion, recognizing in him a partner whose values and heart aligned perfectly with his own. Together, they began to build a life founded on trust, honesty, and mutual respect, learning from each other and supporting one another in ways that no fortune or circumstance could replace. The roadside accident that had once seemed like a fleeting, dangerous moment now appeared as a pivotal turning point, a moment that had unexpectedly intertwined their destinies and led them to a future neither could have imagined. Their story became more than a tale of survival. It became a testament to the extraordinary power of human connection, compassion, and love, showing that courage and kindness can ripple outward, creating bonds that transform lives. As they shared quiet evenings together, watched Lily grow, and celebrated milestones both big and small, Marcus and Jonathan realized that what they had discovered was rare and beautiful. A love that was not born from convenience or circumstance, but from the purest, most unselfish impulses of the heart. It was a love that would continue to grow, rooted in gratitude, respect, and the knowledge that sometimes the most unexpected events lead to the most meaningful beginnings, proving that true connection and devotion can flourish in the most unlikely of places and under the most unforeseen circumstances.